Hello everyone and welcome again to the SQL course. Let's now solve our case study on data types. So I'm going to open the exercise solutions. That's right here in the case study folder. You can open this one and check the solutions for yourself. Also try to understand if you got your answers correctly by looking at this file and comparing the answers with yours. So the first question asked us to describe the books table from the books and books database. If you go here to MySQL, you just have to run describe books and books. I'm going to run this one, and here we can check the data types, and you can see, for example, other information regarding the columns of our books table. Okay, here we can see the data types, also if it's a primary key or not, and this information will help you to answer the questions after this one. So again, to describe our table, just use the describe command, the name of the database dot name of the table. On exercise 2, we are asked what is the data type of the book name variable. And here we can see that the data type, it's a varchar 255. So we have a text column with maximum 255 characters in it. What's the maximum amount of characters that each book name can have? In that case, we'll have the 255 because that's the length we've given in the varchar data type when we've created this table. Exercise 4. What is the primary key of the books table? In this case, the primary key is the book ID. How do you know that? Because here in the key column of the describe, we have a PRI, meaning primary key. That means that this column must be unique for this table. We'll explore more on primary keys next. I've just put here this exercise so that you have first contact with primary keys. Is the author first name, data type and size appropriate for the expected values of this field? Let's check. So we have author first name, we have varchar 100. Arguably this is not the best length to use for this column because it's unlikely that some author will have a first name with 100 characters. Of course, there may be one author out there that have this large name, but it is highly unlikely. So probably you can go for less characters in this column, and that will be a bit more optimized in the table, particularly when doing sorts and other types of operations on top of this table. Always go for the field that represents the least possible characters according to what you understand of the business problem. Here, as we are talking about the first name of a person, having 100 characters is probably a bit overstretched, so probably we can diminish a bit this number of 100 to around 50 or something like that. So exercise 6, apply the logarithm to the column book name times 5. Is this a valid calculation? So let's see. We have here the calculation, so log of book name times 5 from books and books table, and I'm going to run this one and let's see the result. Do you think this is a valid calculation? No. Why? Because the book name contains characters, a lot of characters. It's the name of a book. Doesn't make sense to apply a logarithm to it, and that's why mostly this will not be a valid calculation with any meaning. So exercise 7, one really interesting. Which book will have a logarithm applied to the book name? A SQL is able to implicitly convert it. Let me start this a bit reverse. So let me do a select on the books and books. And I'm going to go through every book so that you understand which book we will be able to apply a log to. So we have Sapiens, To Kill a Mockingbird, Moby Dick, 1984, Brave New World, Dune, Black Swan, The Shining, and Under the Dome. Now, SQL will try to implicitly convert all these rows when it applies a log. So if it applies a logarithm, which is a mathematical operation, it will try to convert every string that we have right here into a number. Only one of them will work, which is 1984. Why? Because this is a name of a book. We know that this is a name of a book and should be treated as such, but it is also a number, 1984. So that means that when the logarithm will be applied to this column, only this row will have a result which is the log of the number 1984. That doesn't make much sense in terms of what we want to do in this column. Even so, SQL is able to implicitly convert this row only. The other ones, as they have letters or they start with letters, for example, the other ones are written text, SQL will not be able to apply anything to it. Let's confirm this, of course, here by running the logarithm here. As we can see, times 5, but as you can see, only the fourth row, which happens to be 1984, is able to have a value here because 1984 is a book name, but is also a number. So we can apply that implicit conversion here. The other ones, of course, will be null because logarithm of text is indeed null. So exercise 8, describe the authors table from the books and books database. And here I'm going to run this code, which is basically the explanation of the authors table. So I'm again using the describe command. And finally, can the author ID have negative numbers? Let's see. So here are the details for the author ID. We see here a type. It's a primary key. Do you think this can have negative numbers? Yes, it can. Why? Because it is a signed column. It's not an unsigned column. If it was an unsigned, it couldn't have negative values as we've seen. As it is signed by default, because we don't have here the unsigned characteristic, then the meaning is that we can have negative values in this column. Therefore, they are not expected because it doesn't make sense to have an ID that's negative, but underlying in the table, they are supported. If you insert a negative row here, you will see that that will work because this column is signed by default. Okay, I hope this was clear. I know that probably you are a bit confused right now about data types because we've explored plenty of concepts here. Don't worry, we'll have more opportunity to explore them in the next section where we'll create our own databases and insert our own data. Let's jump right into that section. I hope you've enjoyed this section of the course and I'll see you in the next lecture.